I think they call this highway not only the $1 Million Highway, I think there's references to places where it's called Little Switzerland of Colorado. I wanted to give a shout out for my friend Suzanne Beck. I've talked to her on the phone, and she's such a joy because she's constantly commenting. She kind of makes you feel like you have a little value. So I thought I'd tell her this little story because I was telling her about learning how to play the guitar and learning a suicide song. And so there's a sheer drop here. I don't know if you can see it, this highway, this $1 Million Highway, but I wanted to tell you a little story, Suzanne. And so I learned a suicide song when I was a kid, right? She was commenting about my singing tonight. So she doesn't know when I was 8, I learned how to sing and play the guitar. And the first song I ever learned was a folk ballad about suicide. So this is like a sheer drop, okay? I have a story about being on this highway, Suzanne, I wanted to tell you. And this was probably 40 years ago. I had such a tragic past. The guy I got involved with was on the news every night for a year. And on the paper, it was a horrible, horrible experience. I wanted to trash my whole life. I never thought I could outlive what went on. I barely was living through it at all. I looked like a dead woman walking when I was 26. Couldn't sleep, couldn't drink, hardly eat. I looked like I was half dead for probably 6 months, a year. It was extreme depression, high doses of depression drugs. I wasn't sure I was going to make it at all. I could visualize my own funeral, and I finally realized, I think I'd always been kind of depressed and suicidal because I was scorned as a child. And not that I'm blaming my family or my mom. I really just don't think sometimes people understand the very nature of how they communicate and how it's interpreted. So we all have to up our game on that and learn how to communicate in a way that's healthy. And specifically, that's what I wanted to talk about, Suzanne. So I grew up in a family where there was a lot of scorning, mocking, condescending conversations. Again, I don't blame my mom. I'm very forgiving towards my family, my mom. We can't learn good relational skills if we don't have the ability, or if we haven't had it imparted to us, right? Spiritual impartation is absolutely everything. So I think my mom was a little hopeless, despairing, and felt sorry for herself most of her life and kind of scorned God for what was happening in her life. And bitter, very friendly, flattering, but deep inside, she wasn't singing the right song, Suzanne. So I was talking to Suzanne. I've actually talked to her on the phone. And, you have these thoughts like, maybe my whole life on Facebook is a waste, or YouTube. Most of our 1,200,000 subscribers are people from the other side of the world anyway that probably can listen to closed captions or maybe understand English, but can't type or respond. So most people don't even take the time. That's what I really appreciate about Suzanne. She actually makes you feel like your life has a little value. It's been very refreshing. I've not only gotten to talk to her, I get to see her little comments and remarks all the time. So she was commenting and remarking about a song. So I had to tell her a story about being on this highway, which is called the $1 Million Highway. And there's sheer drops, like sheer straight down, like I don't know if it's 2,000 feet. It's absolutely scary at some places to drive on, especially when there's no trees like there that could catch your car. So 40 years ago, I had a 1-year-old, and I was in the valley of the shadow of the death, fearing everything, felt totally out of control of everything in my life. I had contemplated suicide, and I think I'd always been kind of a little that way anyway. Just felt like a piece of crap, maybe, that wasn't worth anybody's love most of my life. So I had some serious issues. And then I hooked up with a guy that had some very serious issues and got 150 years in prison, and maybe he should have deserved more. So, I reaped, I sowed to the wind, and I inherited the whirlwind. I sowed to the flesh and reaped destruction. I was held captive by the cords of my own sin because I lived in fear and control. And that never works out good or plays out good in anybody's life because God was meant to be the boss, not us. So, Suzanne, this is a little story. Back to the $1 Million Highway. I was pretty determined at one point to just move away from the town I lived in. So I was driving across this highway, this $1 Million highway with sheer drops. And I'm pretty sure this is the same place they call the Little Switzerland of Colorado. And I'm totally depressed. I'm hopeless. I'm despairing. My only hope was in moving all the way across the state as far as I could go to the edge of the border and pretend like I was completely somebody else, lie to everybody. I learned how to lie anyway my whole life. We have to lie to keep people happy, lie to the parents in your life, because of the malice, the hatred, even when it's silent. It's still really hard. Some people force their kids to lie because of how treacherous they are outwardly. Other people are treacherous inwardly. There's this constant kind of disgust. I look down on you, you fool. You're the source of all my unhappiness. And a lot of parents do that. They don't have any idea what they're doing to their kids. So here I am. I got 4 children, and I'm on this highway with a baby in the back, 12 months old, my youngest child. Her name is Rachel. She was in the car seat in the back, and I'm driving across this highway that has sheer drops. Like maybe even on the other side here is the sheer drop where the car is coming up. Sheer drops all along this highway, especially at the top. And I've gone to another town on the very edge of the border thinking, I am moving here. I'm changing my name. I'm not going to tell anybody who I am. I'm not going to tell anybody where I've been. I am going to pretend like I've never had a past in my life. And I'm going to have a new fresh start. And I'm just going to hide and lie and stuff all my past. And so I went there. I didn't really find any life in moving there. I'm driving back, and I had this horrid temptation over and over to just drive over the edge of the highway. I mean, serious depression. I was at the end of, having any pride or dignity at all. And I was really coming to the end of myself and my own ways. They walk in the light of their own sparks and make a bed of sorrow. That was me. My bed of sorrow was great and horrific, and it involved a lot of darkness. So my plan was to move away, change my name, and never tell anybody anything about my past, ever. Never bring it up. Hide, stuff it, lie. I grew up in a house of lies anywhere where you have to lie to keep the peace because of the emotional abuse. And really the emotional abuse was a lot more subtle. It wasn't outward like it is in a lot of people's houses. It was the inward abuse. And I've said some good things about that story too. I'm not unthankful for my past. I don't feel like a victim. I understand the darkness that my mom lived in with men, and even my stepfather, who had to adopt me, which I found out much later, very emotionally abusive just through indifference and cussing under his breath and not ever talking, just cussing with these bad attitudes, smoking filterless cigarettes. The guy broke down crying when he found out he was going to die of cancer in about a month, and cried uncontrollably because he was so broken at how he treated little girls. So that had a good ending in a way. But back to the highway. Here I am with a 1-year-old in the back seat. Probably the only thing that kept me from driving over the edge of these sheer drops on this highway. And, I didn't have any life in moving away, and I was still totally depressed, hopeless. Every demonic thought that could go somebody's head where there's no help in God, leaning on my own understanding, not trusting in the Lord, coming to the end of fear and control. I hadn't really gotten to the place where I was desperate for God yet, like really desperate and really willing to own how the words of my own mouth and the meditation of my own heart was affecting other people just by being depressed and hopeless and despairing and fretting and whining and complaining and bitter. So I was a big pity baby, and I was coming to the end of self-pity. And I had a broken and contrite spirit. About a month after this experience, I could tell you stories about this whole tragic thing that turned into a love story, really. But back to you, Suzanne. So I didn't drive over the edge of these sheer mountains as much as I wanted to, and I could have, because I had a baby in the back of my car. I couldn't do it to her. She kept me alive that day. And so I'm on the way home, and I said, Lord, I got some serious issues here with pride and lying. And I don't ever want to tell anybody the truth about where I've come from and where I've been. And I felt like this little voice that came from God because I was being honest. Honesty and sincerity brings different thoughts into your head, right? So the different thought that came from God was, what if you can just help one person? What if being humble, truthful, honest, sincere, and telling the real gory truth can bring one person hope? Are you willing to just put away lying and give it up for good? And stop being a liar, stop being a flatterer, stop being a pretender? You know, put away lying, because it's made your life suck. And it's all fear and control, lying is. And it destroys everything, because you hate people you lie to, right? There's no love there. There's no love in fear. Perfect fear casts out love. Fear and control is such a hellish spirit, and it's the source of all evil. It's the downright bottom ditch of all dark activity. That's why the fearful and the unbelieving will be the first to go to hell, because every evil thing happens in fear and control. And it's why people lie to each other all the time, to stay in control, because they're fearful. So this, I think, is getting on to the little Switzerland mountains here. And so, I said, Lord, okay, if I can help one person have hope, if I can help one person have faith, I'm gonna, like we have a friend, he's not alive anymore, but he sang this song, tell it all, brothers and sisters, tell it all, brothers and sisters, what the Lord has redeemed you from. What have you been saved from? The pit of hell. I went down into the pit and the hell of darkness, and I just about lost my life there. Not on just this occasion, but a few. So I decided to never lie again. Never gain a man through lying, never gain friendships, never try to get what I need from people through lying. I put away lying, and I started getting free to love. And you know what? I realized it doesn't matter anymore who loves me back. I'm going to start telling the truth, speaking the truth in love. In Ephesians, putting away the cunning craftiness of men that lie in wait to deceive, so we can control and fear and get what we need from people, extract whatever we need. And Suzanne, it's such a joy to see you here, to have you respond. If you're maybe the one, I think there's been a few of the ones that maybe my life has made a difference. A lot of people despise me, look down on me. They can't get, God, what man would marry a woman with 4 kids that came from one of the most horrific criminals that Colorado may have ever seen besides Ted Bundy? No man in his right mind would have touched me with a 10-foot pole. And because I decided to lay down my life for my kids and start loving them, I think the Lord picked me because he knew that I wouldn't get bitter and offended and feel sorry for myself with women that came into my life either, because I saw the demise of bitterness, of vengeance. Isn't suicide one of the worst acts of vengeance there actually is? And really, when you think of the way of the flesh leads to death, right? Death. My God, it's so sad because lying, control, it's all a death walk and people don't even get it. It's all a suicide. The man who lives without understanding remains in the congregation of the dead. So what don't we want to understand about fear and control and how awful it is? I said to the Lord one time, when I read the scripture, the fearful and the unbelieving are first to be cast into hell. My God, Lord, I'm going to be first on the list. But I was crying out to God to help me, and he has. And he put a new song in my heart, Suzanne, even praise unto my God. And now I sing with other women, and I don't let them sing the blues because I know where it takes them. I'll listen to it. Anyway, I just want to tell you how thankful I am that you're an actual responder. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to me, and it makes me think that maybe there's value on being on Facebook, and you're the one. You're the one maybe I didn't drive off the cliff for. You and a few others. And I'm so thankful for you, Suzanne. Amen.